Welcome to this Broadcom video on the integration of AAI and the schedulers supported by the connector framework. This is the TLS-SSL procedure. Since Linux has specific user and ownership requirements, which do not affect Windows, we use Linux. The purpose of this video is to show how to deploy TLS-SSL to secure communications between AAI and other components. We look at deploying TLS to secure communications between AAI and the user's web interface. This is not strictly an integration topic. However, since in all likelihood you will deploy TLS for the web UI and the connectors at the same time, we cover it here. Next, we deploy TLS to secure connections between AAI and the connectors supported by the connector framework technology. At the making of this course, this means atomic automation, Control-M, ESP, and airflow. You should follow the procedure carefully. Typos, omissions, and mistakes will invariably cause problems. There are some requirements. JVM version 17 is required, and you will need to add key tool, open SSL, and jar to the system path. This is the map of the procedure. We have the AAI and a connector host. We'll use fictional host names throughout the procedure. First, we secure AAI to prevent unsecured incoming connections via web UIs. We use a self-signed certificate. There are slight variations for signed certificates and the command line interface. We have left this out. The purpose of the video is to make sure administrators are comfortable with the overall procedure. At that point, you'll be able to use the documentation for other aspects like the CLI. We create a key store, certificate, and the associated key on the AAI host. The key store password will be used in several other places. We import the newly created certificate in the system's CA certs file using Java's key tool. We update an AAI security file called standalone.xml. We'll delete the existing one and create a new one from a template. Then we'll make a reference to the new AAI key store, the key store password, and the key store manager, which has the same password. We also enable HTTPS. When we restart AAI, all web UIs can communicate with AAI over HTTPS. Next, we secure connector connections, which requires a certificate on every connector host. We generate a signing key to sign these connector certificates, as well as key store and trust store. Then we update standalone.xml in several places to reference the key store, trust store, their respective managers, and enable HTTPS, but this time for the connectors. Then we generate the signed certificate. Each connector requires its own certificate. This requires a key store with its own password. We also specify the AAI key store password we created earlier. The certificate is a jar file. TLS for connectors is now enabled. We move on to the connectors. We copy the jar file from AAI to the connector host and place it in a directory called secure. Next, we rerun the connector configuration tool. This rebuilds the application.yaml file and imports the certificate in the process. In application.yaml, we make sure SSL is enabled. The connector has a new application.yaml file that is enabled for TLS-SSL. Finally, we recreate the scheduler connection in the web UI. We restart the connector. TLS is now deployed. Standalone.xml is usually where problems happen. Users forget some of the entries, alter the wrong ones, or struggle to find the right elements. For this reason, we're showing the file with line numbers. We've used different colors for TLS for AAI and for the connector. Note that line numbers may not match your environment, but they should be close enough. First, at line 401, we look for application KS. This is the AAI key store. We set the AAI key store password and key store name. Then, at line 418, we look for application KM. This is the matching key store manager. We set the password of the AAI key store. At line 556, we look for default-server and enable SSL for AAI by removing comment tags. These three steps enable TLS for AAI. Next, we have connector entries. At line 406, we look for connector KS. This is the connector key store. We enable the line and set the same password as the AAI key store. At line 421, we look for connector KM. This is the matching keystore manager. We enable and set the connector keystore password. At line 411, we look for connector TS. This is the trust store. We set the password of the connector keystore, which should be the same as the AAI keystore password. At line 426, we look for connector TM. This is the matching trust store manager. We simply enable. At line 430, we look for connector SSC and enable the SSL context. Finally, at line 557, we look for default server and enable HTTPS for the connectors. These steps will happen at different stages, not at the same time. But it gives you some idea of which items need updating and where they are. We start by deploying TLS for the AAI server. We start on the AAI host as root, which has privileges to use the keytool command. We create a key store using Java's key tool, a certificate, and the associated key. This has the standard items, alias, algorithm, name of the key store file, the fully qualified name, and validity. We provide and confirm a password for the key store. This is our first password. We'll need it in several places in both operations and standalone.xml. We provide the CN, which should be the AAI host or DNS name. The other fields are not required. Finally, we enter a password for the key store, and the elements are generated with the file name you indicated. We have provided both the command templates and the arguments and a command sample. The key store should be stored under /jboss, /standalone, /configuration. Remember this directory. This is where the bulk of the work gets done, because it's also the location of the standalone.xml file. You should make sure that physical items added to the AAI file system belong to AAI, not root. Finally, we can test the key store. If you see no error, you can move to the next step. Next, we import the certificate we just created in the CA-certs file. This requires keytool, and so we do this as root. CA-certs is generally found in the Java directory under security. You specify the location of the AAI key store. You also need to provide the passwords for both the AAI key store, which we export from, and CA-certs, which we import to. Unless it's been changed, the password to CA-certs should be changed. Next, we perform a file system operation, and so you should be user AAI. We need to create standalone.xml, which contains security settings for AAI. There should already be one, since it's a requirement for AAI to start. You find it in the same directory, /jboss, /standalone, /configuration. We delete the existing standalone.xml and recreate a new one using standalone.xml.fresh. You should never modify the fresh copy. This will serve as a template for all future iterations of the XML file. It's now time to update standalone.xml as user AAI. We have to reference the key store and corresponding key store manager. We look for application KS. Set the password to the key store password and the name of the key store file. Since both files are in the same directory, you do not need to specify the location. For the manager, look for application KM and change the password to the key store password. Do not close standalone.xml. Next, in standalone, we look for default-server. This section has 3 lines. The top one is for HTTP, the second one is for HTTPS for AAI, and the third is HTTPS for the connectors. We enable the second line by removing the comment tags. Restart AAI and then test. If you're able to access the AAI web UI over HTTPS with port 8443, then the first part is done. We move on to the second part, enabling TLS-SSL for connector connections. We will work on the AAI host. Securing these communications involves generating a key to sign connector certificates. It also requires a trust store so that we know who the remote systems are. We create the key store and key and use the AAI key store password. This will generate all the items you need. We head to the connectors directory under the main file system. As root, we execute the script, generate AAI key.sh. The Windows version is .bat. We are prompted for a certificate name. This should be the AAI host or DNS name. We are prompted for a password. This should match the password assigned to the AAI key store. This generates two outputs, the AAI connector key and connector trust store. They are both found in the configuration directory. We need to update standalone.xml. First, we have to reference the connector key store. We look for connector KS, remove the comment tags to enable, and set the password of the connector key store, which matches the AAI key store password. We have a corresponding manager. We enable the manager and set the same password. Do not close standalone. Next, we reference the trust store. Look for connector TS. The name of this trust store is already there. So we enable the section and set the same password. We have the matching trust store manager. We look for connector TM and enable the line. We look for application SSC. This is the SSL context. We enable by removing the comment tags. Finally, we look for default-server and enable HTTPS for connector connections. We save standalone.xml and restart AAI. We can now deploy the connector certificates. On the AAI host, as root, we have to run through this procedure each time we want to generate a certificate for a new connector. If you have 20 active scheduler connections that need TLS-SSL, you'll need to do this 20 times. We generate the certificate, which we will import on the connector host. This certificate requires a key store. We execute the generate connector cert.sh script under the connectors directory. We're prompted for several items. First, we have to specify a name for the connector. This name should match the name of the connector as it will appear in application.yaml and the web UI dropdown. When you recreate the scheduler connection, the certificate is stored in a key store, and so we have to provide and confirm its password. This is the second password we create for the entire procedure. Remember this password. When you set the certificate for the connector, you will need to provide it so it is known by application.yaml. Finally, we're prompted for the AAI key store password, since we're securing two-way communications between AAI and the connector. The trust store generated earlier is updated to reflect the change and re-imported into the server trust store. The certificate is generated and packaged in a jar file. The file name should match the name of the connector as known by application.yaml. We can move on to the connector host. Remember, this procedure applies to all scheduler connections involving atomic automation, Control-M, ESP, and Airflow. We work as the owner of the file system, which is usually the name of the scheduler-connector. We create a new directory called secure under the main install directory. We then physically copy the certificate jar file from the AAI host to the connector host and place it in secure. The jar file is on the connector host. We position ourselves in the main connector directory and execute the configure-scheduler name-connector.sh script or the setup.bat script on Windows. You did this once when you initially installed the unsecured connector. This rebuilds application.yaml, since your old connector will no longer be valid. There are several inputs. The URI for the AAI server, which should be HTTPS, the AAI host name, and the 4443 port. It also prompts you for the connector name, which should match the name of the jar file. So if your file is called tls-connector.jar, then the connector name should be tls-connector. The host name can be any string. It does not affect connectivity. We recommend using the connector hostname, since this is added to the database. The certificate is generated using the key in the connector key store, which has a password. This was the second password we used. We are prompted for it now. We can leave other fields empty. If anything went wrong, you'll see errors. If not, you'll be notified that everything worked as expected. SSL should be activated in application.yaml. Check that it is the case. Then restart the connector. Finally, we recreate a connector in the web UI using the TLS-enabled connector. All fields remain the same. Missteps won't be immediately evident, so we recommend monitoring the connector log continuously for errors. Thank you. This concludes the video.